working alongside the engineering team. Sitting down, working with them, asking the question, what is your application actually doing? What's your API doing? What's the piece of software you're building? Instead of throwing policy at you. How many times have you seen that happening?
Not many.
Not on daily basis.
Okay. That's a problem. And I've seen it over and over and over in organizations where you have this big ivory tower sitting in a room, completely isolated, completely blindfolded to what actually the organization is doing, and using legacy functionality, legacy logic, access control firewall. How do you put a firewall in front of a cluster and pretend that that works? When you have a flat network and you have microservices interact together, how do you protect east and west? You can't. Unless you go and develop with engineering, you say, okay, I either build 3 clusters, or I put something in every microservice, or I spin up microservice on a step-by-step basis. And that's, I've seen it all the time. And that's the mental, and that's the transformation I'm trying to do in all of my customers. So today I'm going to talk to you a little about how things have changed in the cloud and my experience on the evolution on the cloud. What is the problem in the ideal world that I just give you a brief hint about. And then, let's say, top 8 solution to reach that, to approach this business transformation. I don't call it security, I call it business transformation. It's a people transformation. So a little bit about myself. I'm a CISO and I'm a cloud security expert and advisor. I work with a number of organizations from banking to telco, to UN, different size, small and big, to keep my agility. And I've been helping them develop this concept from a strategy perspective all the way to the engineering and taking them on a journey to the transformation. I'm also part of the Cloud Security Alliance. I'm the director of events and organize meetups and conference and part of IC Square. And I deeply encourage you to participate in this club, because if only security people talk about security, we're just close-minded. If only engineers talk about engineering, they're close-minded. Only if we get together and if we make security everybody's job, that's only the way to succeed. Because otherwise your organization will hire an army of security people that works with everybody and it still fails. So everybody needs to do a little bit about security, and security will become effectively an enabler of the organization and interact with the various team and advise the various team. So, how did we evolve? So as Paul said, we went from traditional monolithic application down into service-oriented application, and then microservice and API and so on and so forth. And you said, and as Paul said, the agility is changing. Organization demand fast-paced, fast-moving, new requests, new requirement. How does the security team react to all that? How would a small security team react in an organization of maybe 100, 200 engineers? What's the scale? Right? They will choke. They would just say, I select 1, 2, 3 projects and I do a risk-based approach, and maybe the 4th project that they forget is going to lead into a breach. So we are struggling. So we are asking help because we're struggling. We are also adapting a new world, and we need to protect everything from front-end, back-end, side, supply chain management, and so on. We a little bit lawyers, a little bit devs, a little bit policy people. We can't be a little bit of everything, so we're asking help to people, to organizations, to interact with us and to help us helping you. So, just setting the context, that's the first question of being asked. Is the cloud secure? No, it's not inherently secure. You make it secure, and it's all about understanding the division of responsibility. And it's probably the first thing I teach my client. Understand what you're stepping into, understand what you need to secure, what you need to do, and what your cloud provider do for you. So how do we get there? So we started in 2005. I'll put 2005 as a mark because it's where I step into into traditional data center. And then we went in 2006 with AWS starting and spinning up or making publicly available the cloud offering. In 2008, we got Google with their App Engine. 2010, we got Microsoft and with Azure and IBM joining the team, and then so on and so forth. And from 2014, from my experience, is the time where we got massive adoption of the cloud. Everybody wants to go on the cloud, and we more or less have the 73% organization that in UK that I'm aware of going to move to the cloud in the next 2 years. So why, in this all connected world, API, non-API, we need to secure this cloud? Who has been affected by a data breach of recent? Who knows if their password or if their email has been compromised? How do you know?
Have I been pawned?
Fantastic, fantastic. So Tory Hunt has published this fantastic website where he collects the major data breaches. It just collides them together and say, if you register your email. I've been hit 14 times, but 14 different data breaches. I'm gonna just leave it here. These are the data breaches per year, and just a summary of them. And that tells you, even if you're part of an organization, it's your responsibility to make the organization secure, because you're gonna get affected by it. If you Google, if you Amazon, if you Yahoo, if you're Twitter, there are breaches everywhere nowadays, and it's your responsibility, together with the organization, to actually secure your customer data. And just to give it a scale of the breaches, that's the size of the just last 2-3 years. And I can share the website where I took this. This picture is actually very good in visualizing. I'm big in visualization. And just some numbers. So the cybersecurity and the cyber attacker are part of an industry that is booming. So there is interest in that. And with the move to the cloud, we're actually moving into a world that we don't understand very well. There is a lack and a shortage of skill and a lack of skill. So a lot of organizations move quickly to the cloud and expose service. And 90% of the breaches that I've been aware of are actually due to lack of due diligence. Server exposed without a password, not patched, and so on and so forth. So even doing the basic stuff will just take you so much better off. It's not rocket science, it's just doing the basic stuff. And somebody doesn't do it because they don't know it. And that's my mission, actually, to make everybody aware about security. That's why I don't go only on security conference. I tend to go to a lot of conferences because I want everybody to be aware of. So, what are our challenges as an industry? We have increasing number of breaches. We have a very fast change. We have not unified team, security, and everybody else. We have no involvement of security in the design of application from the very start, and I'm going to touch on that point. Sorry. And we have very little security in application security. So, why is that? Let's imagine our dream world, all right? Let's imagine that we don't have resource constraint, we don't have time limit, and we have all the resource and time that we want to develop our own application. Now, it's not really that case, so we need to select where do we secure and how do we secure and how do we interact best together. So, how do we reach there? Those are my top 8 solutions for organization to secure the cloud, to get a better understanding of security, to get there, to get into that dream world without having an imaginary friend. So, we're gonna see the first one. Let's see cloud responsibility. Why I'm big in cloud responsibility? You need to understand where you're gonna step into. If you're stepping into the cloud, you need to be well aware of what you're gonna manage, what your cloud provider is gonna do for you, and what you need to secure. Let me ask you a question. backup and restore. How big is in your agenda when you move into the cloud? What happens if AWS shut down a service? And they can, it's in their contract, it's in the SLA, they can shut a service and they're going to refund you. What is your business going to do if they shut their front end?
Going to reinstantiate it very, very quickly.
Fantastic. So infrastructure as a code, terraformation, multi-cloud architecture, strategy. But then you have to test it. How many times you tested your multi-cloud strategy?
It depends.
Backups are really easy, really cheap. Restore is really, really hard and expensive. And I've seen zero organization doing it. So just to understand a little bit about the cloud, I don't know how many of you have deployed the cloud, have played with the cloud. My greatest analogy is pizza, because I'm Italian, I love pizza, I'm a foodie. So I divide, damn it, sorry. I divided the service offering in 4 categories. So either you do your pizza at home yourself, you go out and buy it, you get it delivered, and I might need to get a new PowerPoint that works, or you dine out. In this various step, you're effectively delegating the responsibility of certain things to your cloud provider. So step number 2, aside from actually understanding where you are, how would you build a solid house? What would be your first principle to build a very solid house?
Foundation.
You don't skip on the foundation, otherwise your house crumble. So how do you build a solid cloud? You don't skip on the foundation. How do you build the foundation? For me, foundation is a culture of management and support and skill. Right. So you get the management support, you make sure in your adoption of the cloud, it's a disruption, so the organization is ready for it. You make security part of the journey, you address the skills shortage. You just don't go in the cloud and expect that everybody's an expert from day one. You need to address hiring and also upskilling your own internal team. So what tool do you have on Foundation? What tool do you have available on Foundation? Anybody use the Scaffolding, Azure Scaffolding, or AWS well-defined, well-architected principle? That's one. That's where you start. That's where you start selecting the service and how to build it. Then you start choosing how you secure it with control and control framework. And then you start using verticals. So this is an artifact that I use with my client. So you start breaking down each control and how do you implement and how do you integrate. And then you go and understand your organization with a functional architecture. You break down your environment, your organization in functionality. So you can understand exactly how to redo something, not relying on system, but relying on functionality. So you can redo a legacy system very, very quickly, like Andre was saying. So, after you've done the foundation, what do you do? You stop at the foundation? No. You start building the system. So how do you build the system? If you don't know, if you want to train on the system, but you start asking yourself, and you start asking the cloud provider, well, give me a pattern to deploy a 3-stack system. How do I do it in the cloud? How do I do it in your environment? So I start using patterns. And why don't I come up with my own pattern? Well, we actually, with the Cloud Security Alliance, we do a lot of patterns based on experience. But I don't reinvent the wheel. I have somebody else actually doing the legwork for me, so why don't I get a free lunch, right? Let me ask you another question. How would you expand a team without expanding a team? How do you expand the security team without hiring more people?
Guiding the engineering team.
Fantastic. You train software engineer, you train dev, you train other people to do security, and you act as a central point of an advisory service. And that's the only way to scale. That's the only way to embed security and to make security everybody's job. You cannot just go and say, well, you're a dev, tomorrow you're a dev and you do security, and then you go away. You need to train them. You need to handheld them. Otherwise it will fail, right? So what is security by design? Who has done security by design before? Who knows what security by design is?
What do you mean exactly?
Exactly. So security by design is when you start the transformation from a conceptual perspective of how we want to develop a specific application, a specific thing, and you involve security in it. How do you do access control? You have tons of ways to do access control, right? You just sit down with the developer and develop the application, because you could do it in many ways. You just don't chuck a policy and say do access control and then you figure it out. No, you work with them. So how do we make all that fun? So one method that I've seen and done, and it's very common in the industry from a security perspective, is threat modeling. So it's conceptualizing the attack pattern, the attack vector, and you're probably falling asleep right now with those 3-4 words that I've just said. So it's a very complicated method. And people will avoid it the second time I've asked them to do it. And it's a very lengthy exercise. And by the time they finish their diagram, they're so far away from their own application, they don't realize how to fix it. What are the security threats? They miss the easy stuff. So what I do, I make it fun. I use a card game called Escalation of Privilege. This presentation, I'm gonna punch it. Escalation of Privilege. So it's just a number of cards with attack vector and threat vector that I can throw against their application, and that gives them example. And it's just a 15 minutes progressive exercise. And I found out that the second time I don't even have to ask them. They come and ask me because they have fun. Making security fun. Because we spend 8 hours a day in our work, 9, 10 hours. We don't make it fun, we're just lost, right? So shift left. Who has heard of shift left? What does shift left means?
Consider things sooner.
Just don't do pen test at the very end.
Yeah.
That's very, very simple. Just involve security at the very beginning in the conceptual design, designing an application with the dev, defining the security requirement, defining the principle, designing the application with them, doing the threat modeling in a fun way. Don't do it boring. Doing tests, define the test methodology. Don't leave security at the very end. Tests. Security tests are just another functional test. And the last, I had to insert the DevSecOps, but I inserted the two-term piece. Who has seen Peace DevSecOps? Who has ever involved business inside your pod, inside your SecOps or DevSecOps pod? Who can tell me what's the advantage? Why would I do it?
To give confidence to the clients.
Okay? I'll tell you what it gives me as a security or as a business. They are much closer to the code. They don't come up with abstract concept, but in something realizable. They develop the use stories with the developer. The product owner is sitting inside the pod, and if he comes up with a crazy idea, he has to explain it to the dev, and at the third time he will feel ashamed because he can't explain stuff. So, we've seen a little bit about transformation, we've seen about a little bit about how do we do security now. So what does the future give us? Nothing different from a security perspective. It's just applying the due diligence, just applying logical stuff. So, take away from today, we need to understand when jumping in the cloud the responsibility. We need to have a vision and a strategy. We need to have a clear foundation, a solid foundation when to move to the cloud. Do security by design. Drag your security people from the ivory tower down in your team. Use pattern, use free stuff, available resource. Go to the Cloud Security Alliance, we develop a lot of stuff. Shift left, use gamification, have fun at your work. So we've seen the evolution in the cloud, we've seen how to approach this problem, we've seen how to reach our dream world, and we've seen that the future it's not that scary, and from a security perspective, we still need to do the same things. So a little bit on the Cloud Security Alliance, we need you guys. We have meetups, we have conference, we have calls, we have an event coming up. We need people to develop with us, not just security from a security perspective, but from everything perspective, patterns. And we have an event coming up in June. Come and participate. We have a call for paper out, and we're just sponsoring an award, the Cloud Advocate Award. Let me go back if you want to take a picture of it. We're going to be in Santander and in HSBC. So I'm a bit short on time. Do you have any question for me? Shoot.
Can you describe about the game you are talking about?
Escalation of privilege.
No, gamification of that.
Gamification is taking anything that you do and making it into a game, making it competitive. For example, a bug bounty program. You can either take an application, say, I have a list of bugs, I just publish my application out, and I'll wait till somebody can attack it, and I give them a prize. Or, I can impose my pod to attack each other out, and to give them free lunch. How much does it cost an external bug bounty, in your opinion? 2 grand, 3 grand, 5 grand? For a bug. Which one? Probably around the 2-3 grand. How much does it cost a free lunch for a team to do? 1 grand? Top price room? So you save money. And they are aware of their own problems. They try to find each other's problem, and they learn, because they'll be ashamed to actually redo the same problem. And they support each other. And then you start cross-pollinating, and maybe you do a score matrix. The good team and the bad team. Nobody wants to be in the bad team. And they start making it competitive. They want to be on top of the list. That's the whole principle of gamification. Any other question? No? Fantastic.
Thank you very much, Francesco.
Thank you.